So, by the way, it's awesome to see such a nice, big crowd. I think Dileep and his team have done a fantastic job. I think this conference has truly become international standard. So, great job, Dileep. And also, it being fairly early by Bangalore IT industry standards, I'm glad everybody is awake, except for a couple of people who moved around a little while earlier when we shifted people. So today, I'll be talking about innovation. So that's a standard slide that we always have to put up. So today there's a lot of talk about innovation. You name the public speaker, the industry executive, everybody's talking about how do we get people to innovate? What's the right model? What kind of workspaces do we introduce in a company to innovate? All of these discussions are going on. People are studying Israel, which is one of the most innovative cultures that exist today. The way I look at it is innovation follows a similar line to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do people know what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is? Some of you guys are shaking your heads. So basically the whole concept is that there are some fundamental needs of human beings, right? Roti, kapda, makan, housing, food, clothing, etc. And then you get to higher levels. Eventually you get to a point where there's self-actualization, you're able to do great things, provided the rest of the stuff is taken care of, right? Extremely important to understand that very carefully, whether it be analyzing someone's performance, analyzing a company or whatever. In innovation as well, it truly applies. Because the path to innovation is riddled with a lot of bumps, a lot of obstacles that you have to overcome to get to the next step. Right? If every time you have to reinvent the wheel, it becomes very difficult to come up with a car. Okay? So what are the various things that are prevalent in today's ecosystem that are truly enabling innovation? So one, I'm sure everybody in this hall has a smartphone. In fact, more and more people in India are carrying smartphones rather than the original feature phones, and worldwide, of course, that's there. So your ability to reach customers is incredible today. And the horsepower of some of these cell phones is more than, say, a high-powered desktop just a couple of decades ago. And connectivity is tremendous. Jio has made such tremendous changes in the ecosystem in India that, for example, my driver has 3 phones. Each one has network connectivity for free. Now, the other part is with people having smartphones and having access to applications, there's lots and lots of data being produced. The previous speakers talked about analytics, machine learning, etc. All of this is fed with data. To create your machine learning models, you have to have a data model. The data has to be coming from somewhere. So there's a plethora of data being produced every single second, right? And this can be harvested for some tremendous things. And the data is not just from people. The data is also from devices. Right? Your cell phones are devices that are producing data at a regular rate. Your televisions, your other products like a car. All of this data is coming in at a very rapid rate, and there's a tremendous need to figure out how best to make use of this data. And most of this data is unstructured in some manner. Now, to be able to do things with it, you need to have computing power. Right? So in the old days, you had to buy your own computer systems, etc., or get access to time in a university system to be able to do things. Today, computing power is at your fingertips. The previous speaker was talking about in Google, you can provision like 100,000 cores instantaneously using APIs. These things are becoming standards now in the cloud. Right? So computing power is at your fingertips. In addition to that is software that allows you to do stuff on this computing power. You have to be able to use things like Spark ML, Amazon ML, etc., to be able to do things with the data to come up with interesting insights about whatever it is you're dealing with. All of these things together allow you to create products and services that you can make available everywhere, right? So it's a very, very powerful situation that exists today using all of these things. And we are today at a tipping point, right? So are people familiar with the concept of tipping point? Right? It's like the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. Okay? So we're at a tipping point where it's very easy to make use of all of these things to be able to do great things. The time to do these great things has reduced dramatically because a lot of good building blocks are available. And the total addressable market for anybody, be it enterprises or a small business, has increased to be the entire world. Today, you can be sitting in Bangalore and do customer segmentation and targeted marketing in Zimbabwe, right? All of those things are possible today. And as a result, the industry is being shaken up by small players or offshoots of large players who are just changing the entire system, right? So take the case of Tesla. Just, I think, last month, Tesla, for a short period of time, became the most valuable car company in America. Amazing, just a few years after launching, okay? So these are the things that are being enabled because a lot of the base level issues that startups encounter, that companies encounter to make progress, have been taken care of. And it's a great, great time to be a person in this room, right? To be a developer, because you can do fantastic things. For me, software development is like an art. You're developing beautiful things that come out of your mind, right? But to be able to do that, you have to have access to the right paints, the right brushes, the right canvas, and you have that in front of you today. A few more examples of some interesting things happening. We talked about Tesla. I was riding with my friend in his Tesla just a month back in the US, and he was telling me that they have features which, if you want, you can get enabled on demand, say for a weekend, which allow you maybe greater power from the car, etc., and they just get turned off afterwards. There was also a story about a person who had a heart attack while driving a Tesla, and in the car drove the person to the hospital. All of these are very interesting, very important things enabled using things like machine learning and artificial intelligence. We had a talk earlier about blockchain, right? Transparency is coming into all kinds of systems. The Indian banks are coming up with a consortium for blockchain to be able to implement that in India. All about transparency, ease of use, ease of doing business. We talk about augmented reality. Pokemon Go was absolutely fantastic. I think these kind of technologies can greatly help. There's a company today, there are many companies obviously, but there's a company which sends its field workers to fix things, and suppose you don't know how to address a problem with a particular product, you can use the augmented reality glasses, and then all the information about the product is overlaid on top of the product itself. So if you look at a button, it gives you information about that, and then you can fix it. These are very, very powerful things, enabled, of course, all on top of the cloud, right? The cloud could be, Oracle has a cloud, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, all the big players have a cloud solution available to you today. But what I find fascinating is, especially in the Indian industry, there are 3 letters which to me signify the importance of the cloud. And these 3 letters are very important for every Indian. Can somebody tell me what these 3 letters are? IoT, you said? Somebody else? Lifelong learning? Okay, that's a lot of letters. EMI. You have all this computing power, all of the foundation to do great things available in the classic payment model that majority of Indians use, right? It's absolutely amazing, and Indians are embracing it very, very well. So now let's get into some of the nuts and bolts. What are the things required to do these great things, right? So today is the age of microservices. I'll talk a little bit more about microservices later, but essentially these are building blocks that are independent entities that provide a particular functionality, right? And this functionality can be had in the form of any language or implemented in any language. You like Go, you do it in Go. Python, Node.js, you name it. You can implement the functionality in those languages. And tools are available all on the cloud for you able to do this. API management. So all of these microservices have APIs, which allow you to establish a contract between you and your consumer as to how to invoke you and what the payload would be for the return values, right? And this contract allows you to develop these microservices fairly independently so that you don't interfere with the progress of your consumers as well. Developer tools, Git is very, very popular. You've got other orchestration tools like Maven, Hudson, etc. All of these things allow you to do something called continuous integration, continuous delivery. In the old days, to produce a product, minimum took you like a few months. Most big products, it took you 12 to 18 months to produce. Today, it's about producing things every day, right? All of that requires tremendous focus on DevOps, which is basically a supply chain of software development. There's, of course, chatbot and mobile. We'll be talking a little bit more about that later, but that's the new world of interfaces. When you're providing something, you have to monitor it, you have to make sure your SLAs are met, and plus you have to be able to make money on it. So monitoring is especially important. And finally, the new world of write once and run everywhere is now Docker-based, right? So you create your microservices and you can run them anywhere where there's a Docker platform. So these are the basic fundamental requirements for you to create and do great things with your artistic mind. A bit into what the various parts are. So first, you have to figure out what is it you're trying to deliver, create the APIs. Once the APIs are ready, meaning the interfaces are mapped out, then you create your microservices. Once you have the microservices, then you go ahead and develop the application, and then everything comes together. These are kind of the steps. I'll walk you through some of these. So let's talk about API first design, right? Today, we're talking about delivery in a very, very rapid fashion. It's all about agility, okay? So you have to be able to figure out what your customer needs and then deliver to it. In the old days, what used to happen was you would implement your functionality and then talk to your consumers and say, hey, by the way, here's how you invoke it. Are you okay? And the person would come back and say, well, I don't think so. Can you change this? I don't know how to do this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there are also some very good standards that have become prevalent which enable you to do this in a much simpler manner. REST and JSON, for example. In the old days, it used to be, very large XML documents, right? So what you can do today is you can actually agree upon the APIs, do the implementation, and be able to provide them independent of all of your consumers. There is, of course, security. So you need to be able to manage these APIs in a manner so that there's secure access, there are policies set, so the right people are accessing it, are able to access it. And finally, measurement. You can't manage what you can't measure. So you have to make sure your customers are satisfied. You also want to make sure that you're making money from whatever you're providing. What are the metrics? How do you actually do the billing? And hence, with this, you come up with an ecosystem so that you've got your API development and an API management. So Apiary is a company we bought recently, which allows you to do exactly that. Okay? Apiary is a company which allows you to create your APIs, establish the contract with your consumers. Automatically, the a mock service created with your APIs, and your consumers can start interacting with that API to go on with their development, and then you can proceed with yours. It's a beautiful system, very, very popular. Hundreds of thousands of people are using it for development. Millions are using it as consumers. And here's a quick graphic of how typically these things are done, right? And essentially, it walks through the process that I just outlined, which is the creation of APIs, the creation of the microservices, deployment, and then the gateways that front all of your microservices so that all the requests are coming through it. Now, these gateways can run anywhere. They can run on premise, they can run on the Oracle Cloud, on Amazon, wherever, right? So this is the brave new world of microservices. Once you have figured out that you want to approach a microservices architecture, you have to truly embrace it. So the monolithic world of the old style application development had people creating various components within the same entity. So yes, it had this modularization, but it was a monolithic application that was put together for deployment. It took a lot of time. Today, using the API first and microservices architecture, you can create these small teams within your organization, each one being perhaps a 2-pizza team. And these teams can create this stuff independent of the other teams. Everybody can progress in parallel. And more importantly, once deployment happens, if you want to enhance a particular functionality, you're able to do that independent of everything else. Okay? So it greatly enhances your ability to do CI and CD. We talked about this briefly, but the developer tools, the whole ability for you to use multiple languages and use microservices architecture to put together your application, to orchestrate it using Kubernetes, and SCD, or you would like to use Mesos, whatever it is, all of that is provided to you on the cloud platform. So all you need is a browser and internet connection to be able to make progress on this, right? And with the whole computing power and EMI at your fingertips, every person in this room is very, very powerful and able to create big unicorns. I'll walk through this quickly. Today, everybody has a smartphone which has hundreds of apps, right? And typically, what you do is you use a few of them. For me, for example, I travel a lot, right? So I have apps for my frequent stay programs in hotels, for my airlines, etc. And honestly, it's a pain. Which one do you use when typically most people use 2 or 3 apps, right? So there's something that's happening today, which is, I'm sure everybody here will agree, which is app fatigue, right? So many apps on your phone, you don't want to delete it because you're not sure when you'll use it, but then they keep on accumulating and every day you get this thing. And so what's prevalent now is the interfaces are changing. Everybody uses their messenger or chat interfaces, and this has become the user interface of choice now. Okay, I'll talk briefly about how something like this is done, but this is what's happening today, right? It's the rise of the bots, and the bots are powered by AI and ML, and AI and ML understands who you are, what you're doing, and allows you to do great things as a developer so that you can do things like cross-sell and upsell. Various types of bots. One is exactly task-oriented. You enter and say, what's my account like? The other one will be, say, you want to go see an IPL match. And there you or you want to go see it, and then you enter the chat bot for the IPL, whatever, booking thing. And you ask them, hey, when's the next RCB match? And they tell you Tuesday. And right away, the bot asks you, hey, would you like to buy a ticket? And then you say, sure, I would like to buy a ticket. My budget is X, right? And then the bot says, okay, well, here's what's available. And by the way, for, say, 1,000 rupee extra, you can get food, blah, blah, blah. So all of this ability to do cross-sell, upsell, interact directly is all available today using bots, and this is going to be the interface of the future. I'm running out of time, but I'll just quickly mention this particular part. So the channels are there, of course. You have to be able to design the dialogue flow. Intelligence is available in various models for you to be able to understand language, context, and be able to do upsell and cross-sell. And what's also very important is, through the use of microservices and other interfaces, your ability to invoke things in the back end. So you actually do the ticket purchase, etc. in the back end, or update the HR system, or update the bank. All of that interfacing is available in one platform for you to be able to create these chatbots, right? So what you need is a comprehensive platform that allows you to do all of this application development right there on the web. And just in 1 minute, I'll just highlight, on the Oracle Cloud Platform, we have, of course, all the Oracle Platform and SaaS applications, etc., plus also more than 500 packages of open source that you can deploy and use in partnership with our partner called Bitnami. There's a site called developer.oracle.com that you can actually go to get more insights into all of this stuff. There's a conference series that's starting called Oracle Code. The first one in India will be on the 10th of May, and in Bangalore, the one will be in August. So the 10th of May is in Delhi. I encourage people to attend, it's free. And finally, this is something that we're also very proud of, is Oracle entered the whole realm of startup accelerators and incubators last year. It started right here in Bangalore. There was a tremendous response. We're in our second batch, and this year we're growing to 7 more cities around the world, right? So great example of innovation started from here and expanding to the world. Okay, well, thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity, Dilip.
Thank you so much, Mr. Atal.